Camilla has just been thrown out of the palace, and this time it's not just about scandals or stolen jewels. Shocking new proof has linked her directly to Princess Diana's death. The royal family is stunned, the public is furious, and King Charles had no choice but to act. After years of suspicion, the truth finally caught up with her. This isn't a rumor, but this is the moment everything changed, and the crown will never be the same. Prince William quietly authorized a covert legal audit into the events surrounding Princess Diana's death nearly 3 decades ago. The inquiry, internally labeled Operation Orchid, focused on a critical 3-day window during her final visit to Paris. A sealed legal dossier, previously dismissed, identified irregular security changes, particularly around Diana's protection detail. It also named associates tied to Clarence House, specifically referencing influence from Camilla's inner circle. What had long been viewed as an accident was suddenly under formal review as calculated misdirection. A former French investigator, Jean-Luc Martin, testified that records from the crash investigation were redacted at the request of the British Embassy. New documents revealed a critical shift in Diana's motorcade escort timing, delayed by 12 hours due to last-minute reassignments. Surveillance logs also showed secretive palace emails labeled Legacy ISI. These were tied to communications from Clarence House and contained instructions referring to handling destabilizing risk, language never before seen in connection with the crash. An even more damning piece of evidence emerged from an MI6 whistleblower. The agency released encrypted voice files, one of which captured Camilla's voice asking, "Are you sure the escort can wait?" That motorcade, delayed by 45 minutes, never reached its destination. The crash at the Alma Tunnel took Diana's life just after midnight. These recordings, never before disclosed to the public, contradicted every previous claim that the tragedy was purely accidental. The inquiry's final report concluded that Diana's security detail was inexplicably downgraded from 4 personnel to 1 just minutes before she entered the tunnel. Surveillance videos and guard rosters confirmed the shift. When William read the findings, he was silent. Behind closed doors, he said, "This wasn't incompetence. This was betrayal." What began as a quiet review became a moral reckoning. The monarchy had to answer for decisions buried for nearly 3 decades. With Operation Orchid concluded and secret files unsealed, a chilling new piece of the puzzle surfaced. A handwritten letter by Diana herself, long hidden from public view. This letter, penned years before her death, foretold betrayal in startling detail. Her private fears were no longer dismissed as emotional paranoia. They were now supported by evidence. In the next section, we explore how this letter reshaped history and redefined guilt within the palace walls. Diana's letter, finally made public, forensic experts at the Royal Archives in Edinburgh authenticated a personal letter written by Princess Diana. The document, sealed for nearly 3 decades, was stored in a private vault once owned by her former butler, Paul Burrell. Forensic testing confirmed the ink, stationery, and handwriting matched materials Diana used at Kensington Palace. The letter warned, "There is a plan. Camilla has more power than anyone believes." These words, long ignored, took on urgent meaning after the findings from Operation Orchid. Alongside the original letter was a second, even more specific note, written just weeks before her death. It read, "There is a move underway. If anything happens to me on the trip, open this." Diana was referring to her planned visit to the French Riviera with Dodi Al-Fayed. The envelope containing this note remained sealed until Prince William exercised emergency override authority. Legal scholars quickly recognized the letters as both personal testimony and evidentiary warnings. Internal palace emails recovered during the Operation Orchid audit confirmed that Clarence House staff exchanged memos containing phrases like, "Destabilization may be required," and "legacy transition." During the same period, Diana wrote her second note. Metadata from these emails corroborated the timeline. Legal advisors now considered the 2 letters posthumous declarations, messages from a woman who saw what was coming. Combined with the voice recordings, they turned palace suspicion into a documented pattern. Major UK broadcasters released Diana's letters to the public. Within hours, the hashtag Justice for Diana trended across 81 countries. Parliament opened an emergency debate, with commentators calling it the most significant revelation in the royal family's modern history. What was once speculation had become state-level evidence. Camilla's influence, once whispered about, was now written into history in Diana's own hand. Her letters, ignored for decades, finally spoke loud enough to demand accountability from the palace that had once silenced her. As Diana's letters rocked the monarchy, public pressure surged. But the final blow to Camilla wouldn't come from the press or protesters. It would come from within the palace itself. In the next section, we uncover how Princess Anne, long considered the royal family's iron shield, discovered a hidden financial link between Camilla and the crash, and what she did next made headlines around the world. Princess Anne uncovers the hidden financial trail. Princess Anne, fierce, meticulous, and unshakably loyal to her mother's legacy, initiated her own inquiry, separate from Operation Orchid. Aware that the palace needed more than emotional proof, Anne focused on tracing financial transactions from Clarence House accounts in the years surrounding the crash. Working with Edward Sefton, her longtime royal auditor, she discovered that a sum of $2.4 million had been wired from a discreet offshore trust in the Cayman Islands to a private contractor in Paris. The recipient was a now-defunct security logistics firm, Lucentia Global, unknown to the royal payroll and with no documented contracts with MI6 or official palace operations. The firm's only notable assignment was a vehicle transfer contract during the weekend Diana died. The paper trail was chilling. Lucentia received instructions to facilitate evening surveillance disruption at the Ritz Paris, the same hotel where Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed dined on their final night. Lucentia's local partner, Jean Mononclair, later testified that disruption meant reassignment of escorts and altered departure routes. Everything aligned with the crash timeline. Digging further, Anne uncovered emails between Camilla's longtime aide, Harrison Dent, and Lucentia's UK liaison. One message included the chilling line, "Final assurance required. Delays are non-attributable." This correspondence, buried in encrypted servers in Berkshire, was verified by cyber forensic teams as authentic. More than a coincidence, it was a conspiracy funded and facilitated through palace influence. Camilla, once a distant figure in Diana's public tragedy, now appeared in the shadows of its orchestration. Anne delivered her findings directly to King Charles in a private audience at Windsor Castle. He reportedly sat silent for 40 minutes, staring at the transaction records, offshore bank logs, and contractor briefs. The man who once defied the world to defend Camilla said nothing. When Anne finally spoke, her words were brief but piercing. "She killed our mother's peace." Charles closed the file and, with his head bowed, gave Anne the directive she had been waiting for. Do what must be done. With the financial evidence now in King Charles's hands and Anne standing guard over justice, the palace faced a truth it could no longer hide. But it wasn't until Prince William stepped forward that the reckoning truly began. William demands arrest behind palace gates. Prince William summoned his legal counsel, Sir Daniel Graysark, to Kensington Palace for an unscheduled emergency briefing. Armed with Anne's full financial report, Diana's letters, and Operation Orchid's final transcript, William issued an unprecedented royal warrant. He signed an official request to Scotland Yard's Royal Security Division, invoking the Crown Integrity Act, a statute rarely used except in cases of national-level betrayal. Camilla Parker Bowles, Queen Consort of the United Kingdom, was now under criminal review. Within hours, palace gates closed, no media leaks, no press briefings. 2 unmarked vehicles entered the north gate of Clarence House. Camilla, unaware of what was unfolding, was reportedly on a private call with her sister, Annabel Elliot. A senior officer approached her private study and informed her calmly but directly, under authority granted by the sovereign's estate, You are being placed under palace confinement, pending charges of treason and conspiracy to manipulate state assets. According to staff, Camilla went pale but said only one word, William. A sealed arrest notice was hand-delivered to King Charles's personal chamber. Though emotionally shattered, Charles signed the document. According to aides, he wept while signing, stating only, "For Diana or the truth." The next day, Camilla was formally placed under royal house arrest, confined to the east wing of Balmoral under 24 hours. Her royal security detail was revoked, and all communications were monitored by the Crown's legal office. Officially, she retained the title Queen Consort. In practice, she was now a royal prisoner. When the public found out, it ignited a global firestorm. News outlets from BBC to CNN carried headlines like, Camilla under arrest, monarchy in crisis. Online, over 4 million tweets used the hashtag #JusticeForDiana within 12 hours. Protesters gathered outside Clarence House and Buckingham Palace, demanding full prosecution. Some held signs reading, 30 years too late. For the first time in modern royal history, the people, the law, and the crown itself aligned on one thing. Camilla could no longer hide behind royal titles. With Camilla now facing the full weight of legal and moral judgment, the stage was set for a dramatic unraveling of her role in the palace. But the final act wouldn't be played behind closed doors. It would erupt inside Westminster Hall, where her public interrogation would send shockwaves through the kingdom. The trial that rocked Westminster Hall. Camilla's royal tribunal was held in the historic Westminster Hall under the public eye in the shadow of the late Queen Elizabeth II's portrait. The room, packed with press, legal teams, and royal staff, fell silent as the lead prosecutor, Lady Eloise Marrow, read the charges: conspiracy to defraud the sovereign estate, posthumous defamation of Princess Diana, and obstruction of historical truth. These weren't symbolic accusations. They carried potential sentencing under royal law, removal of title, exile, and asset seizure. Evidence was presented for 8 hours straight. Diana's handwritten letters, Lucentia global payment receipts, and the voice recording from just days before Diana's fatal crash were all displayed. Camilla, seated quietly in a navy coat dress, refused to speak during the initial sessions. Her legal defense, led by Sir Alaric Grant, argued that none of the documents proved intent to harm, only mismanagement. But public sentiment was already boiling. Cameras panned to Prince William's stoic face and Princess Anne's unwavering glare. Then came the emotional peak. William himself took the stand. He read directly from his mother's letter. "They want me out of the way." The courtroom fell silent. "I believe my mother knew exactly who she was fighting against," William stated. "And we failed her." His voice didn't tremble. The strength behind his words was enough to convict hearts even before the law spoke. When asked if he forgave Camilla, he said only, "Forgiveness is not mine to give. Justice is." Although the tribunal delivered its verdict, guilty, Camilla was stripped of her ceremonial roles, barred from any future inheritance of royal assets, and sentenced to indefinite exile under supervised confinement at a private estate on the Isle of Skye. The crowd outside Westminster erupted in cheers. It wasn't just a verdict. It was closure for Diana, for William, for a nation that had waited nearly 3 decades for the truth. As the gavel fell on Camilla's final claim to the crown, the monarchy turned toward a new future. But history would not let go so easily. Exiled to the Isle of Skye, Camilla was discreetly transferred to a private estate on the Isle of Skye, a remote location selected by the Royal Exile Council for its isolation and limited access. The estate, once owned by a distant cousin of the Queen Mother, was stripped of modern amenities and surrounded by 3.2 miles of forest and cliffs. A royal decree signed by King Charles officially banned Camilla from visiting any royal palace, ceremonial event, or public engagement under crown authority. She was, in every sense, a ghost of her former title. The media called it a velvet exile, But insiders knew the truth. The estate had only 6 staff, all Crown-appointed, 2 security officers, 1 cook, 1 nurse, and 2 administrative stewards. Camilla's communication was limited to supervised calls once a week, and her only allowed visitor was her sister, Annabelle Elliott, pending approval. All funding for her upkeep was reallocated from personal Parker Bowles family assets, not the sovereign grant. The estate's perimeter was under silent monitoring by Scotland Yard, which classified her status as Tier 3 containment, a royal security breach risk. Camilla's days reportedly followed a strict routine: wake up at 6:30 a.m., meal check-ins, therapy sessions twice a week, and enforced lights out by 9 o'clock p.m. She was allowed access to books, no internet, and only censored news reports. Her only window to the world was occasional mailed letters from her children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, both of whom faced scrutiny. After her tribunal testimony, Laura was stripped of art trustee privileges at the National Gallery, and Tom resigned from his Daily Mail food column amid public backlash. While Camilla faded into silence on the windswept edges of Scotland, inside the walls of Kensington Palace, a different storm was brewing. Prince William, now more resolute than ever, turned his attention to one question unanswered for nearly 3 decades. Who else knew? The secret pact between Charles and Camilla, exposed an anonymous palace informant, leaked a sealed document to the Times labeled Protocol 97. The file, dated shortly after Princess Diana's funeral, revealed that Charles and Camilla had signed a private communication and protection pact under the advisement of their former legal strategist, Sir Aldrich Hawthorne. The document outlined how any involvement Camilla may have had in public destabilizing actions would be concealed for the monarchy's survival. The file shocked the public and Parliament. The House of Commons demanded an immediate inquiry. MP Eleanor Greenfield filed a motion calling for a royal oversight hearing. Within the file were notes from Charles's private secretary acknowledging receipt of reports involving non-traditional contacts between Camilla's aides and unknown external security agencies in the months before the crash. Although no direct confession was cited, the implication was damning. Charles knew about Camilla's financial entanglements as early as the time of the crash and chose silence. When confronted by the Royal Advisory Committee, he appeared visibly shaken. According to insider accounts, he admitted only, "I loved her enough to protect her, even when I feared the worst." That sentence, leaked through unofficial palace channels, sparked fresh outrage. The hashtag #ProtectDiana surged again, hitting 5 million mentions in a day. More importantly, it opened the gates for public questioning of Charles's own role, not just in the cover-up, but in the emotional aftermath suffered by William and Harry, who were just 15 and 12 when they lost their mother. As the monarchy reeled from decades-old secrets finally coming to light, Catherine began building something no crown could fabricate: public trust rooted in authenticity. In the following weeks, as Camilla faded and Charles wavered, Catherine rose, not with spectacle, but with resolve. Catherine secures Diana's legacy for Charlotte. Catherine summoned royal archivists to Kensington Palace for a silent yet symbolic act. Inside the secured heirloom vault, updated with biometric dual-access systems, she placed a letter titled, "For Charlotte from your grandmother through me." It was Catherine's formal declaration to reassign all of Princess Diana's preserved belongings solely to the Wales bloodline, locking them in legal perpetuity. The items, including Diana's sapphire ring, the Spencer tiara, and her handwritten diaries, would pass directly to Princess Charlotte on her 18th birthday. No media cameras were allowed. No statements were released, but word leaked through palace aides, and the public's response was overwhelmingly supportive. Over 400,000 people signed an open letter thanking Catherine for restoring honor where betrayal once reigned. Even anti-monarchists admitted it was a move of genuine grace. For many, it marked the closing of a long emotional wound, the final assurance that Diana's legacy would never again be exploited. mishandled, or sold. Catherine had done what no investigation, trial, or law had truly achieved. She made Diana's spirit sovereign again. Internally, Val's palace protocol changed. A new division, the Wales Legacy Trust, was created to oversee the maintenance, rotation, and educational display of Diana's historical items. Overseen by Lady Rachel Montford, a longtime Diana archivist and Charlotte's legal godmother, the trust would report directly to Catherine. For the first time, a royal collection wasn't governed by tradition or committee, but by maternal intention. "This isn't about ownership," Catherine said quietly to staff. "It's about guardianship." That statement, later quoted in the Telegraph, was hailed as a new era in legacy preservation. With Diana's legacy sealed and Charlotte's path secured, the royal family began its slow, painful healing. But public judgment was still unfolding. The people's verdict, the British public no longer waited for official statements. In cities across the United Kingdom, including London, Manchester, Cardiff, and Edinburgh, tens of thousands gathered for what became known as the Diana Marches, silent vigils lit by candles and held beneath giant images of Princess Diana. The movement had no formal organizer or political sponsors. It was born on social media, fueled by hashtags like #DianaDeserves, Better and #Camilla is gone, which trended globally for 6 consecutive days across 31 countries. Public sentiment, once divided in the 1990s, had now aligned. For many, the tribunal verdict, Camilla's exile, and Catherine's actions represented a long overdue moral correction. Editorials in The Times, The Guardian, and international outlets like Le Monde called it a historic reckoning of monarchy, memory, and manipulation. A poll conducted by YouGov showed that 81% of respondents believed Camilla should lose the title Queen Consort entirely, while 70% felt Charles had irrevocably damaged his moral standing by protecting her for so long. What stunned royal aides most was the overwhelming support not just for Catherine but for Princess Charlotte. At just 10 years old, Charlotte had become the quiet figurehead of Diana's second legacy. Thousands of letters addressed to her flooded Kensington Palace, many from people who had never written to royalty before. One read, "Dear Charlotte, your grandmother made us proud. Now you make us hope." Catherine, moved by the public's words, ordered that all letters be preserved and read to Charlotte privately. It became clear the people no longer waited for crowns to tell them who to admire. They had already chosen. The international response, as news of Camilla's trial and exile spread globally, reactions poured in from world leaders, media outlets, and royal watchers worldwide. The story dominated headlines from Washington to Tokyo, with many foreign correspondents calling it the most dramatic royal scandal since the abdication crisis of 1936. President Emmanuel Macron of France, speaking from the Élysée Palace, offered a carefully worded statement. "The French Republic respects the internal affairs of the United Kingdom, but we cannot forget that Princess Diana died on French soil. Justice, wherever it comes from, brings closure to wounds that have festered too long." In the United States, major networks dedicated entire primetime specials to the unfolding drama. CNN's Anderson Cooper interviewed former royal correspondent Jenny Bond, who remarked, "What we're witnessing isn't just about one woman's guilt or innocence. It's about institutional accountability that has been decades in the making." The Vatican, through Cardinal Proen, issued a statement emphasizing the importance of truth and reconciliation. "The Church has always taught that truth must prevail, even when it brings pain. We pray for all those affected by these revelations and hope that healing may come through honest acknowledgement of past wrongs." Surprisingly, that several European royal houses broke their traditional silence on British royal affairs. Queen Maxima of the Netherlands was photographed laying flowers at a memorial for Princess Diana in Amsterdam, while Crown Prince Haakon of Norway publicly stated, "Some truths are too important to remain buried, regardless of protocol." Commonwealth nations watched with particular interest. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese of Australia commented, The monarchy's credibility depends on its ability to confront difficult truths. This moment will define how the institution moves forward in the 21st century. Social media amplified global voices. The hashtag #DianaJustice trended in over 50 languages, with supporters sharing memories, photos, and tributes to the late princess. A viral post from a young woman in Mumbai read, "Diana taught us that royal blood doesn't make you noble. Noble actions do." Today, justice finally caught up. Celebrity voices joined the chorus. Sir Elton John, Diana's close friend, broke his usual silence on royal matters with a tweet. "Truth has no expiration date. Diana, we never forgot." Oprah Winfrey, who had interviewed Harry and Meghan about their struggles within the royal family, posted on Instagram, "When institutions fail to self-correct, sometimes it takes a generation to set things right. Today feels like that day." The international legal community took notice. Professor Sarah Henderson from Harvard Law School's Royal Studies Center observed, "What's unprecedented isn't just the conviction of a queen consort, but the use of historical evidence spanning nearly 3 decades. This case will be studied in law schools for generations." International betting agencies, which had long offered odds on royal scenarios, suspended all wagering related to the British monarchy, calling the situation too volatile and emotionally charged for responsible gambling. As the world watched Britain grapple with its royal reckoning, foreign investment in UK tourism paradoxically increased. Hotel bookings in London surged as international visitors sought to witness history in the making. Tour guides reported unprecedented interest in Diana-related sites, from Kensington Palace to the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris. The true crown. Exactly 28 years after the tragic death of Princess Diana in Paris, Catherine appeared publicly with Princess Charlotte at Althorpe Estate, Diana's childhood home. The event was not announced in advance. Dressed simply in navy blue, Catherine led Charlotte to Diana's memorial garden, where the young princess laid a single white rose on the stone bearing her grandmother's name. A photograph captured the moment. No tears, no spectacle, just silence and serenity. It became the most shared image of the year, appearing on front pages from New York to New Delhi. This was not just a tribute, it was a declaration. Catherine's gesture signaled that Diana's story would no longer be written by others, not by tabloids, not by scandals, and certainly not by the shadows of betrayal. By establishing the Diana Charlotte Legacy Fund, a newly formed charitable foundation, Catherine ensured that Diana's values of compassion, mental health support, and children's welfare would be carried forward under Charlotte's patronage. The fund received £12 million in public donations within its first 4 days, with supporters from 52 countries contributing. Inside Kensington Palace, changes followed. Diana's preserved belongings were moved to a dedicated vault wing, where Charlotte would one day oversee exhibitions and educational programs in her name. A new family charter signed by Prince William officially established the Wales family's independence in legacy governance, separate from the broader royal household. The move was historic, marking the first time a branch of the monarchy established full custodial rights over a former royal's estate and public memory. Diana, once silenced and erased, now had a formal place, not just in hearts, but in royal law. As for Camilla, her name faded from royal correspondence. Her exile continued at the Isle of Skye estate, now a distant memory under private security oversight. Charles, though still king, appeared less frequently in public, often seen alone during walks at Balmoral. The weight of his decisions and the revelations they sparked had clearly aged him. Meanwhile, Catherine rose not just in popularity, but in moral authority. A poll by Ipsos UK named her the most trusted royal figure with 89% approval, surpassing even Elizabeth II's final rating. The people had spoken and crowned their queen in spirit. This was never just a story about jewels or exile. It was about betrayal, truth, and the invisible power of memory. In the end, Camilla lost not just her crown, but the trust of a nation. Diana, long gone, had never been more present. And Catherine, without ceremony or title, had become the queen the people never had, but always wanted. Through Charlotte, that legacy would continue. As one letter to Kensington Palace said best, the true crown was never on her head. It was always in her heart.